Welcome to Crash Course. I'm pretty sure you're reading that. Pretty sure. Alright guys, this is the real beginning. This is Welcome to Crash Course Junior. My name is Maxwell Bach. Today we're going to be discussing the French Revolution, its ideas, its fundamentals, and its lasting effects on revolutionary France. Now the way we're studying the French Revolution in class is using Creighton Britton's model, The Anatomy of a Revolution. But since I can't actually read, our history teacher is teaching us like this, using a lot of boxes. Pre-revolutionary France was separated into 3 separate estates, or classes, the highest being the clergy, who didn't have to pay any taxes at all, the noblemen, who owned land, and the peasants, who lived on the noble's land. I have some notes here. I was going to read them. You're looking good. We can't stay up. The peasants lived on the nobleman's land, and they couldn't actually hunt for food. If they were caught hunting, they could be punished by death. This led to a steady diet of black bread.
Are you texting Max, your girlfriend?
I'm looking at my notes. The peasants could be called on for military service, but the noblemen could not, however. They were exempt. It's estimated that 60% of peasant income went to bread alone. Insert bread joke here. Peasants couldn't even buy salt. It was owned by the state and sold for ridiculous prices with very high taxes. It's actually very common for illegal salt deals to be going on. Yo kid, buy some salt. But no matter how bad peasantry got, it couldn't have been worse than the lower class. The French colony Saint Domingo produced more than twice of what all the British colonies combined were producing at the time. Suck it, Brits. Hey, Brit, you hear that? Our big butt of the day comes courtesy of Aristotle.
I like big butts and I cannot lie.
It is nature's intention to distinguish even the bodies of free men and slaves, the latter usually endowed with strength to suit their employment, while the upright carriage of the former renders them unfit for servile work, which conveniently allows nobility to claim that they would help out, but it's just not in their birthright. It's too bad, so sad. Now perhaps the biggest stimulus for why the revolution occurred in the first place is the royal family. King Louis XVI and his wife Marie Antoinette lived in the Palace of Versailles, over 700 rooms. That's 20 kilometers, 12.5 miles for you customary weirdos. The Enlightenment were a group of thinkers that criticized the royal court. Think Justice League. Though they advocated for equality, the early Enlightenment really didn't go much anywhere. It was more known for its foundation for the ideas that later came. How do you say the currency of France, the livres?
I think I have a pronunciation thing.
It's fine, I'll make a joke about it if I get it wrong. I'm so scared. Between the British starting the Industrial Revolution and having overseas colonies, along with the French sending over armies to the Americas, the French were running into major debt. The king died as any right mind would, and bought 2 more palaces for 18 million livres, or livres, or livres, I don't know. And adjusted for inflation, that's like a lot of money. Recognizing the national debt, the king called a meeting in 1787 with hundreds of nobles in parliament present, with one proposal: to raise taxes. Although the taxes would be in exchange for localized power, the nobles, not surprisingly, refused. The civil unrest increased after the proposal, after which the king readily revoked it, and instead attempted to create a public celebration to get the monkey off his back. This celebration was the first demonstration of violence by the commoners of France. Thousands stormed the street. These first revolts weren't exactly revolutionary per se. They were more like a bandwagon of sycophantic attitude. One guy would be like, nah, we don't like that, and another guy in the crowd would be like, yeah, we don't want to do that anymore. Many borrowing ideas from the French Enlighteners, or the French Avengers, or Fringers. The first official rebellion came courtesy of a very unlikely candidate, the royal family. The Palais Royal was a palace used for trading and merchants. The palace was owned by none other than the king's own brother, the Duc d'Orleans. I probably said that so wrong. The king's brother hated the king. He allowed the growing opposition to gather there, plan, and discuss. Since police could not enter the palace, it was the perfect place for rebellion. Those who met were the spark. They were the gadflies in the king's ear. A constitution was written, and the deputies of the opposition declared themselves the government of France, an enemy of the hierarchy. The rumors scared the king, and in June of 1787, 20,000 royal troops marched on Paris to stifle the protests. At this point, the opposition in Paris was marching through the streets, partying it up. It was only when the royal army was coming that the plans were made to defend. 13,000 volunteer citizens were chosen to defend the initial wave. Homeless and vagrants weren't allowed to. Which makes sense. I mean, this is a respectable revolution after all. Like equality or something like that. But they are French though, so you would expect them to be kind of stingy, right? But geez guys, the royal army is on their way. You're outnumbered and you're running low on wine. This revolution may not turn out to be such a good idea. It was only when the recruits from sectors of Paris were drafted did an opposing force worthy of a royal army arise. A group of over 48,000. However, the next problem in the revolution occurred. Weapons. The royal army had them. And you don't. You got spirit, that gotta count for something, right? Right? Get up, get up! I'm so sorry. And then came one of the most famous moments of the French Revolution. Local forces in Paris were desperate for weapons. When they demanded gunpowder from the Bastille, they were denied. However, over 1,000 dudes stormed up. Turns out they didn't acquire anything but 7 inmates. French facepalm. And by now, surely someone was like, well, what are we gonna do? Well, everyone was impressed by the force arisen in Paris, and many nobles supported the new National Assembly, even the king himself. He recognized the National Assembly as part of the French government, and as soon as it started, the revolution was over. But not so. One of the first proposals by the National Assembly was instituting the Declaration of the Rights of Men and the Citizen, which would effectively destroy feudalism in France. Only the problem was the king's veto. You see, the monarchist had the right to veto any proposal that he saw fit. He had the final word on all arguments. Because he could stifle anything in the new National Assembly, the National Assembly wasn't so National Assembly-ish. Now the point in their new existence was kind of negligible. The king and queen were forced out of Versailles in 1789 when a crowd of angry peasant women, tired of the hypocrisy, marched on the royal palace, threatening to destroy it. While France was contemplating a future France without a king, the moderates, the National Assembly, were ready for change, but not exactly pushing it. The royalists were the conservatives and tried to maintain exactly what they had, power. Throughout this time, taxation led to decrease in food, poor protection, invasion of Austria, and the king and queen were executed. Is that right? Is that right? Is that freaking right? I hope that's freaking right. That sounded great. In 1799, the monarchy was officially overthrown. Napoleon Bonaparte claimed himself consulate. The revolution was officially over. What's that? It's time for an open letter. An open letter to the French Revolution. There's nothing in here. Guys, there's nothing. We don't have the open letter. There's nothing in it. Guys, there's nothing in it. I found out there's not much in here because not really much changed during the French Revolution. In 1804, Napoleon Bonaparte claimed himself emperor, was crowned by the papacy, and his children were to succeed him on the throne. Taxes were eventually raised, and feudalism was effectively abolished. Oh God. If the French Revolution teaches us anything, it's that slaves, peasants, women, and those who believe in a better future can change themselves to change the world. In a revolution that fueled other uprisings throughout the world, the French, no matter how stingy they may seem, offer us an example of human resolve at its finest, ready to show us of everything that we're actually capable of. Thanks for watching. See you next week. Probably not. Probably won't see you next week. Crash Course is produced by... I know it's... This project is by... Oh God. Rihanna Miller, Abigail Cherry, Phineas Hall, and Maxwell Vaughn. Thanks for watching Crash Course.